Coach Pete Jenkins, I hope you're having a great day, sir. Welcome into the game here in T-Town.
Thanks a lot. I'm glad to be with you.
Absolutely. And now let me kind of get the a little bit of understanding of what you are still doing, because you're still involved in the game. You still do a lot of consulting work around the country as helping these college coaches identify great defensive linemen.
Well, I don't know if that comes under the heading of what I do, but yeah, I do. I didn't plan on this, to be honest with you. When I retired, I didn't. This just kind of came my way. But I do. I worked 6 colleges and 1 pro team this year, and then in January and February. In January, I worked with college seniors who are NFL hopefuls, and in February, I worked with pro defensive linemen. And so I'm still got my fingers in it a little bit, but I kind of get to do what I want to do, and that's the beauty of it.
But, Coach, as coaching has been a part of your life for so long, does that please your thirst to get back on the coaching side? Is that enough to kind of to whet your appetite for the coaching part that's been a part of your life for 55 years?
Yeah, it is. And you know, it's an opportunity for me to be around young people and young players and whatever. And that really, you know, I think that helps keep me young, to be honest with you. And I really enjoy the players and enjoy working with them. And it's my goal to be as helpful to them as I possibly can be. I do miss, and I told my wife the other day, everybody, I heard you talking about different people going out today and starting practice. And I told her the other day, I said, you know, this is always a hard time for me because everybody's getting involved and they're starting up their practices and all that kind of stuff. So I still miss it. I guess I'll always miss it, to be honest with you. But it was fun. I had a great run and got to be around a bunch of great people. So anyways, I just try to keep involved as much as I can, and still, you know, kind of on the outside.
Coach Jenkins, when you're recruiting, well, I guess when you were previously recruiting defensive linemen, you were trying to identify, hey, this guy has what it takes to be a super defensive lineman at the collegiate level. What is that number one characteristic that all great defensive linemen have in common?
Well, you know, I think quickness is a real prerequisite, but it's not the only thing. You know, you'd like for them to be quick. You like for them to be strong and agile. Certainly, you like for them to be tough, mentally and physically. And then the other thing, especially the closer to the ball they play, is to be an unselfish team player. Because there's not a lot of pats on the back for what those guys do. They don't get a lot of the news or things like that. But I think unselfishness is a big factor, especially when you like it all over your team, but especially with your defensive tackles. But, you know, I'm like everybody else. I like a big, strong guy who can run and accelerate and loves to hit people, you know, all of those things.
Going into last year, Quinnen Williams had 160-something snaps. Not a lot of us were placing high expectations on Quinnen Williams, even though he was the next guy up. He was able to be one of the best defensive linemen, if not the best in the country, won the Outland Trophy, drafted 3rd overall to the New York Jets, just signed his rookie deal today, is reporting to camp. Just a great individual. I got to start there with Quinnen Williams, but what he was able to do last year was simply amazing. You were one of the first individuals that spotted Quinnen Williams. What was it about him, his talent set, that allowed you to kind of have that early prediction?
Well, you know, I saw his quickness, and I was working at LSU in 2017. And Carl Dunbar was the defensive line coach over at Alabama, who played for me here at LSU. And I saw him in the game just sparingly, and he caught my eye. You know, I thought he was super quick. He reacted extremely quick. And I saw him, and then when I went to Alabama in the spring last year, he reminded me a lot of a guy I coached in Southern California. His name is Leonard Williams. And Leonard was Leonard's sophomore year. I had him his sophomore year, and he was a unanimous All-American. And people were talking about him being maybe the first guy taken. I didn't have him as a junior, but I don't think he had quite the year he had as the sophomore. But they reminded me so much of one another. I thought both of them had cat quickness for the size, and they both could change directions on a dime and give you 9 cents change. You know, they just wore great body control and great movement. And then when I went back for 2-a-days last year in Alabama, I just saw him. He just had so much promise. He really did. And let me tell you, in the meetings, you know, he was the right kind of guy. He was involved. He was always asking questions, and he was interested, and he just had all the ingredients, I thought. Now, I'll be honest with you, it exceeded my expectations a little bit too. I don't mean that I thought he'd be quite as good as he was, but what a fantastic year, and it really couldn't have happened to a nicer person.
Well, and it's just kind of funny that you mentioned Leonard Williams. In a 3-4 defense there in New York, they're going to be both Quinnen Williams and Leonard Williams on the same defensive lineman in that 3-4 system.
Yeah, that's pretty ironic. Yeah, it sure is.
Coach, when you look at Nick Saban, from a coaching perspective, I love to be able to pick the brains. You know, we have Coach Stallings on every single week here. We feature Coach Pat Dye during the football season, and we love to be able to talk with these former coaches because you guys understand the game so far advanced in what we as media or we as fans enjoy the game. When you look at Nick Saban, what has he been able to do, in your opinion, that's kept him sustained success, not just winning one championship, but continue to be there every single year? How does he do it, Coach?
Well, you know, there's another question that you asked me, kind of like the one about the defensive lineman. It's not any one thing. You know, I don't think Coach Saban does any one thing. When I first went to work for him at LSU, I was around him for about a month, and I introduced him at an alumni function in New Orleans. And I didn't really. I mean, this has been a long time ago now. This is 2000. And I said to that group of men, that group of alumni that I was introducing him to, I said, I believe that Coach Saban, my time being around Coach Saban, he does more things that are duties that the head coach has to do in the Southeastern Conference. He does more things good than anybody I ever worked for. And so that's the way, and I think about a lot of times by saying that, I really hit the nail on the head. You know, I think, and I've said this to Coach Saban before, I think the first thing that I think about him as far as it sets him apart, he is a great communicator. And I think in today's game, more, you know, really in today's game, with the diversity on the squad, I would sit and listen to him talk to the team, and everybody in there, regardless of background, regardless of anything, they seem, his message always seemed to resonate with the players. And it's the same way now over at Alabama. I think he's a great communicator. I think he's a great judge of talent. And then when he picks it out, he's a great recruiter. Everybody knows how knowledgeable. I've never been around anybody who had more overall knowledge of the game than Coach Saban. And I've worked with some really good coaches, both in college and pro football. Coach Saban knows what everybody on the football field in every different grouping, whether it be punt return, punt team, the defensive team, the kickoff team, the offensive team. He knows what all 11 of them are supposed to be doing. And I mean, when I say knows, he has an understanding of what every one of them. It's amazing to me how smart Coach Saban is. Then, you know, I think he has a gut feeling for the game. He always said you got to have a really good plan, but you got to have a gut also. And I told him one time, I said, that onside kick against Clemson, he doesn't get, he gets acknowledged for a lot of things, but I don't think he gets acknowledged. People don't really seem to talk about that. But as you remember, that onside kick won that championship. And he makes decisions like that in the games because I do think he's got a real instinctive feel for the game during the game. Should I go on? I mean, is that enough?
No. I'm sitting here. I'm on the edge of my seat because Coach Pete Jenkins, I'm 41 years of age. I've got some younger people that work on my staff here every day. We do 4 hours of college football every single day. And it's hard for me sometimes to communicate with 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds. I'm just curious, and as you get older, it seems that gap widens, and you got to meet them where they are. And I think that's what makes Coach Saban, as you said, a great communicator, to meet them where they are.
He is an unbelievable communicator. He really is. I mean, I sat and listened to him talk to the squad for 3 years, and I have been, since that time, because he's been very good to me. I mean, nobody could be better than anybody than Coach Saban has been to me, and I will always be appreciative of that. But I sit and listen to him talk to the staff, or listen to him talk to the squad. He just he has a gift. He is a tremendous communicator, and I think that may be, if I were to rate one thing, I think you could start right there. His knowledge of football, his recruiting, all that kind of stuff. Of course, he's one of the best I've ever seen at all. But to go back to the way I introduced him in 2000, he does more things better than anybody I've ever been around. And I would, if I introduced him today, I'd feel very confident in saying that same thing.
Coach, how hard is he to work for as an assistant coach?
I wish I had a nickel for every time I've been asked that. I can answer it for you. I can tell you this. There's great expectations on you when you work for him. There's always accountability when you work for him. There are always a lot of hours, and I think that comes with the job, to be honest with you. He didn't work as many hours. He didn't work his staff as many hours as some of the people I've been around. But here's the thing, and I tell people this all the time. If he asks you to do something, here's how I want this done, and you don't do it, you're going to be held accountable for not doing it. If he asks you to do something and you don't do it, then at some point there's going to be some accountability for not doing what he asked you to do. So to me, if he asks you to do something or he asks you not to do something, then he's going to hold you accountable. A lot of people have a hard time with that. I didn't have a hard time with it. I didn't have a hard time with it. He was, and I worked for him in 2000. Coach Saban's a different coach today in some respects than he was in 2000. Mel Tucker and I laugh about, we caught him in maybe one of the worst times in his whole coaching career because he was so hungry to accomplish things. Not that he's not still, but you've probably known him as long as you have. You've probably seen him change a little bit.
Sure.
And I tell him over at Alabama when I visit over there, and he has me over there, I tell him sometimes, Coach Saban has mellowed, and they say, mellow. They look at me like I'm crazy, and I say, no, I didn't say he's mellow. I said he's mellowed. and he has a little bit, but, everything's relative, okay? So where he mellowed from, where he started, he's still not very mellow, to be honest with you. But a lot of guys have had problems working for him. Actually, I don't. I didn't have any. I loved working for him. And and he was fair, and he was honest, and you never had to wonder where you stood. That's all you can ask.
Coach, I'm curious because things didn't happen Alabama's way out in Santa Clara. How can Coach Saban use that for this team, or do you try to remove that game and completely block it out? I mean, you got beat 44-16. It was not kind to Alabama out in California. What do you think, or how do you think he can use that to help his football team this year?
Here's what I would say to you. I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know how he'll choose to do that. Let me say this to you. I have confidence that he will. He will build on it, use it in some way or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not sure what kind of path he's going to take. I will say this to you. When I spoke with him shortly, maybe the next day or the next day after the game, he was not pleased with the last three games. Not just the Clemson game, but the two previous games. He was not pleased with the way the team played. So, with Coach Saban, he's such a purist. It wasn't just that game. He lost that game, but they won the Oklahoma game. But he still wasn't happy with the performance at Oklahoma. And to tell you the truth, I was nervous during the whole daggum game because I felt Oklahoma was really getting the impetus in the game as the game went along. I thought Alabama was much better in the first quarter. But let me say this to you. I wouldn't even venture a guess. I can tell you this though. That's been something that's been on his mind since that final whistle against Clemson. And let me tell you, I talked to Dabo, and a lot of people don't realize this. I talked to Dabo, I don't know, a month ago maybe, and he told me, he said, Pete, this was a special team. And I said, well, I heard you, Dabo, I don't know, mid-season sometime, say, this is the best Clemson team I've ever been around. And I think it kind of escaped all of us because they played kind of average against some very average opponents. But he told me, he said, this team, so all these kids came back, and all of them that could have come out, even first-rounders that could have come out that last year, they came back with one goal in mind, and the goal was to beat Alabama. So, they played an inspired game. I think the whole season stemmed around getting to Alabama, and they almost stubbed their toes a couple of times and didn't get that opportunity. But I don't know. I just think it was a good team. Clemson was. Really. Hey, let me ask you this. When have you ever seen 5 defensive linemen drafted?
Sure.
Off one team?
Yeah, 100%.
And I said to Dabo, I said, I've been fortunate enough to be around some guys where we would have the whole front three, if we were a 3-4 team, or the whole front 4 drafted. But they were like second round, fourth round, They got 3 first-rounders on the defensive line. I said, Dabo, I've never heard that. I can't remember that. He said, you know why you can't remember it? Because it never happened before. But not only did they have the 3 starters, they had the 2 of the backups drafted. That team was a talented team. And I think it was a team on a mission and maybe a little stronger motivated that way than Alabama was at that particular time, and that particular night. So I don't know, but I know Coach Saban is busy trying to rectify that because I don't care how bad it hurt anybody. It hurt him worse than it hurt anybody in the world. I can tell you that.
Coach, final question. We're talking with Coach Pete Jenkins. You have been asked to stop some great players in your career, 55 years of coaching in the business. When you look at this hotshot quarterback by the name of Tua Tagovailoa here in Tuscaloosa, maybe one of the best that we've seen in a long time. Ever since I've been covering him, I've never seen a guy like this that can spin it and the accuracy that he has. I'm curious what you see in the young quarterback here in T-Town, Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm like everybody. I mean, I can give you the standard answer. I've never seen anybody better at throwing the ball from all different locations and positions. I coached in pro ball actually in college and pro ball against Peyton. And I remember the first time in the pre-games when I watched Brett Favre throw the football. I was watching him in pre-games, and I could hear the ball going through the air. I mean, it was spinning, so I could hear a sound of it. I mean, I've seen some guys with some great arms. Brady, I coached against Brady, who I thought was in our huddle when the play was called. I don't know. This young man he is a special talent. I think sometimes, that he pushes, he tries to do a little too much sometimes because he is so good. They used to talk about, in Favre, I mentioned Favre, they used to talk about Favre. One of the bad things was he had so much confidence in his arm. He thought he could get it in a knot hole. And he would make some ill-advised throws sometimes because he just believed in his arm so much. I think the thing that you'll see, and I hope this is right, I think you'll see the same talent, but I think you'll see a young man who's been through some maturing and the maturation process as a quarterback. And I look for him to have not that he's been having great years. I don't mean that, but I look for him to really have a tremendous season. And I just got so much respect for him. I'm glad the RPOs that he does so well. I'm kind of glad I'm retired, to tell you the truth, because I don't have a lot of answers to the RPO offense, and he is so good at it. And I look forward to seeing Alabama because I think you got a guy who can throw it, and that receiver core is just, man, those guys are so fun. Well, it's so much fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to it, and I know there's some areas where they've got a long way to go, but it is Alabama, and it is Coach Saban, and so my confidence is high.
Well, Coach Pete Jenkins, thank you for giving us 20 minutes of your time. I've enjoyed the conversation, and
thank you.
Safe travels up to Tuscaloosa. Thank you again for being a part of the show, sir.
Thank you.